mayyanantamahāmbhodhau viśvaṃ nāma vikalpanā atiśānto nirākāra etadevāhamāsthitaḥ nātmā bhāveṣu bhāvastatrānante nirāñjane ityasakto'spṛhaḥ śānta etadevāhamāsthitaḥ.
Verse number 3. In me, the shoreless ocean is the imagined illusion of the universe. I am profoundly tranquil and formless. In this knowledge alone, I abide. We went through the analogy of wave ocean in the earlier verses. Waves do have form, hence there can be a thought in the student meditating on the previous verse that maybe the ocean consciousness got modified to waves. Ocean consciousness got modified to appear with a different name and a form. Ocean name, ocean form. Similarly, he might think the creation may be a modification of consciousness with various forms of created beings. To clear this doubt of the student, the Acharya here says the name form for creation is all only an imagined illusion. Creation is not modification of consciousness. It is the apparent name form, everything is illusion, which we clearly saw in this seashell and silveriness verse. Consciousness remains as the witness when we are asleep. This we know very well. Hence, remaining as witness, it remains undisturbed while our minds and bodies experience modifications in dream. If we go a step forward to the ultimate step, if and only if one abides in self, then he will not even witness any dreams and he will not be disturbed by anything at all. So, for him, the undisturbed state is there irrespective of his state of consciousness, whether it is waking state or dream state. As per this verse, if we can sequence it appropriately, one abides in self-knowledge, and therefore, in his abidance in self-knowledge, without being disturbed either in waking state or in dream state, as per the translation of the verse, one is ever tranquil and peaceful. At the macrocosm level, creation arises from Brahman, and in Brahman, who is the true source of all modifications. Although it arises like a dream in the field of nature, and Brahman is its essential cause or the source, still Brahman can never be affected by the modifications in the creation. It is because those modifications do not arise in Brahman, but they arise in nature or the objective reality, from which the self or Brahman is completely free. Creation arises from the modifications of nature as a projection or reflection or formation or superimposition of its tattvas and the triple gunas upon the self, upon consciousness Brahman. In the whole process, the self does not participate or become involved at all. Commentary line: the world of names and forms is only the imagination, vikalpanā, of the total mind. It has no existence whatsoever. The self is undisturbed, profoundly peaceful, and ever formless. In an earlier verse in chapter 1, we read Sakaram antaram vidhi nirākāram tu niśchalam. All which have form are false. The formless is the changeless. Fourth verse. Nātmā bhāveṣu na bhāva. Translation: the self is not in the object, nor is the object in the self, which is infinite and taintless. Ananta nirañjane. Hence, it is free from attachment and desire. It is tranquil. In this knowledge alone, I abide. It is true that self exists in all as their very self. It is also true that all beings and worlds exist in the self alone. The self is the only support for everything. The self is the infinite, independent, and absolute reality, and the worlds and beings are limited, destructible, and dependent realities which exist in self. We have to be clear on one thing, with which we will understand the subtler meaning of this verse. To exist in something is not the same as to be something. For example, you live in a house. It does not mean in any way that you are in the house, in the sense that the essence of you is present in the structure of the house. You are not in the house, although you live in it. In other words, you have a relationship with the house, and you may exist in the space within the house, but you are not in the framework or materiality of the house as such. You and house are two distinct realities, although you may share the same space. The self is the subjective reality and the world is the objective reality. They belong to different realms. The former may exist in the latter. The subjective reality exists in the latter, but does not share with it its essential nature, such as infinity, immortality, bliss. The self is infinite, immortal, indestructible, purnam and anantam and ananda. Whereas, though the objective world, creation, all beings, they exist only with the support of the self, still it is not necessary that all of them are also infinite, indestructible, immortal, anantam and ananda. Clear? By nature, the self is blemishless, nirañjane and infinite. By blemishless we mean it is free from the impurities such as ignorance, avidya, moha, delusions, desires and attachments, raga. They exist in the world because it is made up of the tattvas and gunas of nature. Because they are not present in the self and the self is not present in them, that is, the self does not get contaminated by all these things which exist in the world of beings, avidya, moha, raga, dvesha, etc. Since the self is not contaminated by any of these things which are present in the world, the self is blemishless. Let us see if there is any line in the commentary. Attachment and desires are delusions of the mind. When these two are transcended, the mind is also transcended. Where the mind is not, there is nothing to disturb the consciousness, and therefore it is ever tranquil. In this true knowledge, born out of his direct experience, Janaka says, I abide.